And good morning and welcome. Today is Friday, August 21st. Can you believe it? We are just, Tuesday marks 2 weeks until primary day. I don't not know where this summer has gone or where this election season has gone, but here we are. And I'm sure for candidates, it's been a long election season because it's been a different type of election season with COVID-19. Instead of going door to door, they're finding other ways to connect with voters, with their neighbors. One of the ways that we have been helping readers and voters get to know their candidates is by hosting these forums. I think we're at about 10. This will be our 10th city council candidate out of 19 or so. I should go back and count the number, but we have 2 interviews scheduled today, and we have 2 scheduled for Tuesday, a couple more maybe over the weekend. So we're looking to, we've given this opportunity to every single city council candidate. There are 12 running for at-large, and there are 2 running for Ward 1, 2 for Ward 2, 3 for Ward 3. So all Newport City Council, all Newport residents have a reason to go to vote ahead of time before September 8th or on September 8th. All of the city will be narrowing it down from 12 candidates. There'll be 12 candidates. You can vote for up to 4. That will narrow it down to 8 for the November 3rd election. And then in Ward 3, you'll also have a Ward 3 primary between 3 candidates. You will choose 1. That will narrow it down to 2. And then on November 3rd, you will choose your Ward 3 councilor and the councilors that will represent you at large. Today needs no introduction. And I'm going to start it this way and I'll bring Susan up here. Susan, I think just about every candidate, if not every candidate, has mentioned you and your mask brigade and all of the organizing that you have done around masks. And we'll certainly hit up the masks. It's all been positive. But Susan Taylor is a at-large city councilor. She formerly was Ward number 1 city councilor, and she joins us today. And hello, Susan.
Thank you for that introduction. Can I go grab a button for the Newport Zorro Brigade?
Yeah, and while you do that, I will just let people know the Zorro Brigade is Zorro masks. And it is a volunteer brigade that is passing out masks. There it is.
That's it. And you'll notice it says Newport. Whoops, I'm holding it wrong.
There you go.
Yeah, Newport Zorro Brigade. And we've gotten some attention from the governor, and I was hoping that other municipalities would adopt this initiative, and they could start calling it, for example, the Jamestown Zorro Brigade, the Narragansett Zorro Brigade. But the origin of the Zorro Brigade really went back to long version of the story.
Yeah, whatever, we have time.
So late May, and it seemed like the one thing that was a clear instruction was that you should wear masks when you're interacting with people if you can't maintain the 6 feet. And so I introduced a resolution. I actually was the only sponsor of it. And the first week that it went before the council, there was a lot of concern among my fellow councilors that this was unenforceable. It might be too much. It was overreaching, what the governor was putting out there. And they asked me to modify it and bring it back the next week. I actually didn't hear from any councilors in that intervening week. I made modifications on my own, sort of, limiting the hours and doing fewer streets and so on. But the city actually does have the authority to implement emergency ordinances or do that through executive order if it's in the public health. And the governor's setup of the executive orders gave the city the legal authority to do this. So I wanted to push on it because I felt it was so important. I will add, I was in the hospital for 2 nights over Memorial Day weekend. Stomach issue, it's fine now. But I saw our hospital workers and what they are wearing all day long, doing a whole shift, doing, finicky manual procedures with gloves, gowns, masks, and sometimes face shields. And it was incredible to me that they were, doing their entire workday like that. And I felt that people could put on a mask when they are on our downtown busy streets. And it gets crowded on America's Cup and Thames, Cliff Walk, of course, sometimes on Bellevue. And I felt it was really important. So I introduced it the second time. It did pass that night. The next day, Joe Nicholson put out an executive order. So that was great. And I knew that there were enough people that I just basically knew personally who would be willing to volunteer to pass out masks. Joe stepped into the breach with masks for us to hand out, with signage, with a whole, sort of PR campaign. And that first weekend, I'm going to credit John Gobus, a brilliant transportation planner. He was passing out masks, and to the women, he said these masks are approved by Vogue. To the men, he said these masks are approved by Zorro, and the name stuck. So we've become the Zorro Brigade.
There it is.
Vogue Brigade, right?
I want to let you know, there is obviously, we're going to talk about COVID. And many times, speaking with the candidates over the last couple of days, they have brought up the volunteer group and the city and you for making the masks available, passing out the masks, and that whole group. So also a round of applause, kudos to everybody who's volunteered to support and to better Newport. Certainly, we appreciate your time and dedication. It helps all of us.
Absolutely. And we've got the same volunteers signing up week after week. So please let me put the call out. If you're interested, contact me by email or by phone. I'm assuming we'll do contact information somewhere in this interview. Yeah, it's been amazing.
Awesome. Well, that is the longest intro I've had for somebody so far. So how are you? Good morning.
I'm good. Thank you, Ryan. I'm sorry. I'm really loving this format and obviously relaxing into it. I did my candidates forum with the consortium last night, and I have to say, after it ended, I felt like that was like candidate Jeopardy. It was like you have 60 seconds to answer the question, and let's see who gets it right, kind of thing. And to be able, well, the way that I work is I come to a council meeting with an idea of how I'm going to vote, but I go with an open mind because I'm always ready to take in new information. I want to hear what my fellow councilors have to say, what they think, what they propose. I want to hear what the audience has to say. And I have been known to change my vote, during the course of, to change my opinion as to how I will vote. And this format feels a bit more like that. It's nice to be able to develop an idea. Thank you.
Yeah, and we were invited to join that media conglomerate, and we thought it was important to, there needs to be more than one voice on everything. There needs to be more than one media voice. There needs to be different ways to do things because it's going to be different results. And I come from a radio background, and I understand that sometimes having people answer a question in 1 minute can go extremely well for them, or it can go very poorly for them. And that is not exactly reflective of them or their character. They might not just be able to put all their thoughts into a good 1 minute answer. So Frank and I came up with this idea of, let's get to know the candidates. They can't go door to door. Let's give them as much time as they want to answer questions. Let's keep it relaxed. Let's have some fun, but let's talk about the big issues. And it's been a big hit. It is a ton of work. Obviously, 19 candidates. That's about 20 hours of just Newport City Council, if not more. But it's very important. And if it helps one person make a more informed decision when they go to the booth on September 8th or November 3rd, we've done our job.
That's it. I just want to reiterate that the 60-second answer is not how we function on the council. And it's a dangerous assumption to think that can reveal how someone will perform as a councilor.
And, you know, for all the candidates, this certainly isn't the most perfect way of doing things either. If you have a question about a candidate, they all have their contact information is all public. You can call them, you can email them, you can have a one-on-one conversation with them. So certainly don't look everywhere and inform yourself in all the different directions. So, Susan, you know, there may be new residents, there may be new voters, there may be just people that have kind of forgotten. So why don't you start with the basic, you know, who you are and, you know, your background, maybe what you do besides answering constituents' phone calls and emails, and, you know, why you're seeking re-election.
Okay. Oh, Ryan, I'm sorry. I've lived a lot of years, so there's a fair amount of answer as to who I am and what I do. My profession is I'm a lawyer and I handle immigration cases. You know, this seems to be the season where candidates get into their personal narratives if you're following national politics at all. And I don't think I've done that much of that before. So let me just give a thumbnail sketch of. I've been thinking about my parents a lot lately. My mother was an architect. My dad was an accountant. They immigrated from England after World War II and before I was born. And they started a landscape design and construction business in Seattle. I grew up with conversations around the dinner table about urban design, how neighborhoods have to fit together, how a house is sited in the midst of a landscape, just thinking about design concepts and the interrelationship of buildings and landscapes and urban neighborhoods. And this, of course, was the era when, according to Robert Moses' design theory or theory of transportation, you would be ripping up whole sections of downtown urban cores to install a highway. And my parents had very strong opinions about that there's an organic way that neighborhoods develop, and it's important to honor that. They were comparing what England was doing from in terms of their motorways, which skirt the cities and are surrounded or flanked by green belts, compared with what the US was doing, which was putting these highways straight through the center of town. So I grew up thinking about this. And I also want to add that I just have been thinking so much about our small businesses during this, well, always, but most acutely during the pandemic. And my dad used to say that it was a gamble to start a small business. You had to be a gambler. Certainly being in the landscape business, I remember in Seattle, there was one night where the temperature dropped from 55 degrees at 11 p.m. to 15 degrees at 4 a.m. And it really wiped out a lot of what they had built in the business in 5 years. They had to downsize from two locations to two locations of a retail nursery. And it impacted them hugely. And that's the kind of thing that small businesses, you can't, it's just very difficult to anticipate every disaster that might come your way. And I'm thinking, of course, about the pandemic, which was unforeseen. I'm not saying unforeseeable. And the natural gas outage from the beginning of 2019. And part of the mask brigade was to support our businesses downtown. I don't think that our retail workers and our restaurant workers should be the first person encountering a tourist to say, we want you to wear a mask. It's not, they are trying to recoup some of the losses, and they need that income, and they shouldn't have to be the enforcers as well. And that was what, instigated the whole Zorro Brigade. But why I'm running, we're in a very exciting phase in the city's development, of course, with the Pell Bridge ramp redesign, and now what we've put in place with the process for the North End Urban Plan and the final product we don't yet have, but we're anticipating that very soon. The city has really reclaimed our ownership of our zoning, and we've worked on developing a long-term vision for how we want our city to look. And this work is just at, we're on the cusp. We're at the beginning stages, and I want to remain on the council to see this work furthered. I'm also proud of this past term. We have opened up the workings of the city council to the public eye. It's not always pretty. Democracy can be messy, but we have invited a robust discussion within council meetings, both from council members and the audience. And I'm proud of that. And I want to stay on the council and ensure that the public continues to have a voice and can see how their council works.
Well, obviously we started the conversation with it, and it's at the top of everybody's minds, and it's had an impact on everybody, and that is COVID-19. We've touched base on the mask Zorros and the volunteers, but we've been asking everybody, what steps or additional steps should the city take to prevent COVID-19 outbreaks in the city? And, is there anything the city should be doing more to enforce restrictions?
I think that, probably after Labor Day, just because summer feels intense, and I know with the election coming up, your city leaders are feeling the intensity. I would like to have a conversation with our police department to talk about how they might be more visible so that the residents really feel that the police have our backs. In general, we want to feel that the police are working with us to support what improves and will maintain our quality of life. So that's a conversation that I hope to have going into the fall. And our community police officers are doing a great job. When they've been out to, stand with the volunteers at the tables, it's some magic occurs. It's not surprising, but I really want them to hear that. The other thing is, I'm so pleased that the governor is officially promoting outdoor activities. I really want to reimagine how we can expand our economy with increased outdoor activity. So I'm looking at putting in a resolution that would provide for perhaps every weekend, every Saturday or Saturday and Sunday, we might close off a different section of one of our commercial streets so that the retail stores and the restaurants can expand and take over the street. It becomes a pedestrian mall. Think about the Broadway Street Fair and how successful that's been. The concept is that you take that and apply it to different sections of the city. And we know that residents of those neighborhoods may feel inconvenienced. We want to work to accommodate that. Another possibility, an idea that I would like to explore, is the idea of having cars and retail activity coexist on the streets, possibly slowing down the speed limit to something like 10 miles an hour, possibly losing one of the lanes, minimizing the car traffic, and persuading the car traffic to coexist with the increased pedestrian activity.
Now, some of that hits on where we're heading next is, we know COVID-19's here. We know the economic impact it is having on the city of Newport. Obviously, it's across the globe, but we're focusing on Newport today. The economic impact it's having on businesses. You just hit on a couple, but any other ideas on, what we can do? I know a lot of business owners and a lot of people are worried about how do you get through this winter? So what are some of the things, economic recovery during and after?
I want to see the city make accommodations. I would like to see our small businesses take the lead in making suggestions for what are their visions for how to expand. They are the business people. I run a very small law practice. I don't consider myself a business person with the vision for how to make retail succeed. And I want the city to accommodate them. This may come up in other questions. You know that I was the lead sponsor of the Master Transportation Plan, the resolution that has resulted in the RFP now ready to go out for a Master Transportation Plan. I'm hopeful that that plan, which won't be coming in time to address the business concerns for this winter, but I want to look at longer term, how can we promote retail? I do know that people who are walking on foot are far more likely to slip into a shop that has an interesting looking window display. If they drive past, they may notice the window display, or they may have their eyes on the road, or they may be looking for a parking place. But they're less likely to go back and visit that business. If you're on foot, you're just going to go, oh, I like that hat, or I like that mask. For real help for our existing businesses, we are looking at help from the state, and the state is looking for help from the feds. And I don't mean to pass the buck, but I'm also trying not to whitewash the situation and to say that we do need, a real injection of financial support. And I really think that we have to look more broadly than that. I'm also assuming that you're going to be asking a different question about planning for the future to attract new businesses to Newport.
Yeah, we are going to get there right now. And
okay.
what a segue that is we have heard it, you have heard it, everybody's probably heard it at one point or another. And certainly we can see some of the economic impact when our tourism and hospitality industry do take a hit during the gas outage, during the pandemic. I think the FY 2021 budget, which we're in now, had to be cut back by $3.5 million. A lot of that was because of some of the hits with these industries. So, does Newport rely too heavily on the tourism and hospitality industries? And, what are some of the alternative industries that the city should look to develop, or you would like to see the city look to develop?
Yeah. As far as relying too heavily on the tourist industry, I have a vision for the tourist industry. I think that we're attracting tourists with how much fun you can have in Newport. The beaches are great restaurants, and come to Newport for a good time. I would like to see us promoting what really makes us unique. We have the most fascinating history. It spans almost 4 centuries, and we should be doing more to attract the tourists who are going to travel to see U.S. history. I don't need to enumerate. I think I hope all of your listeners are aware of our colonial history, our Revolutionary War history, our Gilded Age history, our 20th century history with pioneering the restoration and preservation of our historic properties, the first synagogue in the United States, our sailing history, our sports history in general, golf, tennis. It goes on, and particularly with Discover Newport making the, I think, prudent for them decision to vacate the visitor center. I would like to see that remain as a central place of information for tourists, but I am intrigued with the idea of perhaps the Newport Historical Society could set their roots in there, and tourists would come to Newport and they would learn more about the historical features that they could see. That's on the tourism aspect. For attracting businesses, I think it's really critical. I hope that out of the pandemic that we can look again at establishing better broadband access across the city. We have the start of optical fiber cable running down Broadway, and we've been stuck, I think, because we don't have the the entity that can bring that sort of wholesale, if you will, cable. We need a retailer, so to speak, to bring the features of that cable to the end users. But I would like to see the city focus on that. That obviously is going to take coordination with the state as well. But the advantages to high-speed internet in Newport are incredible. Of course, with distance learning for our kids, with so many people now working from home. And I just want to note the story of Inspire Environmental, which took up residence, became a tenant at Innovate Newport. They were looking at Fall River to set up the expansion of their business. And when they checked out the space in Innovate Newport and saw the optical fiber capability there, because Innovate Newport does have access to the optical fiber, they decided to stay in Newport. And so they're a thriving business at Innovate Newport. And I just want to see more of that. The blue economy. A lot is said about the blue economy. And I think, people begin, the term isn't clear. I mean, we already have a blue economy. We have shipbuilding on such a scale. We are internationally recognized for our capabilities with the development of the most sophisticated materials and technologies for racing yachts. We also have serious Department of Defense contractors. We have Newark, we have Electric Boat. They're not specifically in Newport, but people who work at these Electric Boat, Newark, other locations, they should be wanting to live in Newport. That's morphing into a different question about what makes Newport affordable and attractive. Newport's already attractive. We need to work on making it, making the infrastructure attractive and making it more affordable. But I just want to go on a little more about the blue economy, because we once upon a time had a fully working waterfront, and we still have some marine industries along the waterfront. I would like to see us exploring a waterfront zone so that we can preserve what we love about our waterfront. And of course, public access is essential to that. Yeah, I can start there.
No, it's all right.
Mindful of your time, Ryan. I know I'm realizing how much time this takes for you.
No, it's all right. I learn so much, and I talk with all the current counselors all the time, and I read a lot and I hear a lot, but it's fun just to be able to, sometimes none of this has the opportunity to come up. You hit on it a little bit, and I'm going to combine the two questions because I think they might go together. So the question that you referenced and that you were going to be asked was, how do you make Newport more attractive and affordable for everybody, as well as for families? And what I'll do, just in case it comes up, or you can answer it after, is I will ask you, what would you like to see the North End become in 10 years, in 2030? I don't know why I keep looking at my calendar. It's still 2020. But in 10 years, what do you think the best use of the North End would be for all residents of Newport?
Thank you. And I'm glad that you're referencing 2030 because sorry, I'm just suddenly reminded of the motto of my college, which was all my plans require time and distance. Certainly time. If we aren't doing the long range planning, we might end up with another Rogers High School in the shape that it's in. Where was the planning for the long term as that was being allowed to deteriorate? But sorry, that's a snarky comment. It's really important that we be thinking constantly about 10 years, 20 years, and 30 years out. So in terms of making Newport more attractive, we need to think about businesses and about residents. And Certainly supporting our educational system and offering a first-class education is key to attracting businesses and families to move to Newport. Supporting our infrastructure with the broadband that I mentioned, with a better transportation system, a better way for people to get around town and for traffic and deliveries to move easily, for tourists to enjoy walking in the city, and to try to create a Newport where people don't feel the need to be car dependent. What could the North End be? I like to think of Broadway and Washington Square and our downtown as models for what the North End could be. Most of all, I want to see the North End integrated into the rest of the city. You know, we have too many road barriers that make the North End feel like you have to cross a border practically to get there. And I'm hopeful that the Pale Bridge ramp redesign is going to address the highway that Admiral Kalpas has become, and just the physical barriers to the North End. And I am hopeful that the North End is going to be a true mixed use with room for small businesses, the startups, room for housing that is affordable to our workforce. And we need to look at what percentage of our families are cost burdened as they try to rent. And I'm looking at, it's an out of date figure, but I can't imagine it's changed that much. 45% of renters in Newport are cost burdened, which means they're spending too high a percentage of their monthly or annual income on housing costs. And so we need to find ways to support housing that is affordable for the people who actually work in Newport. The ideal city is going to have people who live and work in that city. Those are the people who are going to be the most engaged with the city's many vibrant commissions, and who are most likely to run for school board and run for office. So I'm hopeful that we can develop a North End that has room for the tradesmen, of course, for the small businesses that are existing there, and that would attract small businesses as well as larger scale developments. I think the larger scale developments definitely, they have a place. They add a central locus to the region, but we don't want the appearance of a large-scale development to feel closed off. We want it to be inviting for pedestrian access. The other thing that I want to mention with the North End is that I really want to see it be a model for how we reclaim the topography that has been disrespected for too long. I'm talking about the stream that meanders through the North End, and it begins roughly up by where Pell School is, and meanders down Malbone Road and through the area that is nicknamed the Swamp. And it's the aspects, there is natural drainage with marshland that has been compromised over the past many decades. And RIDOT has been creative in looking at daylighting. I love that verb, daylighting the stream again, so that it can provide real drainage. And I know the NBBJ vision for the North End is looking at walkways and open space surrounding that stream. And that is going to be a visual, immediate, visceral lesson for our residents as to how we really need to respect Mother Nature.
You brought it up a little bit, and I'm glad it's been a part of every conversation that we've had, and I think it needs to be part of the conversation much more often. But affordable housing, we did a lot of, Frank Prosnitz did a lot of reporting for us on affordable housing. The state minimum is 10%. Newport's at about 15%. Newport is among a very small handful, less than 5, less than 6 communities out of 39 that actually hit their minimum threshold. Obviously, when you look at the nonprofits and services in our state, in our city that provide services to those in need, like the MLK Center, churches with their soup kitchens, many of them are providing more services than ever. So that I combine those two and say, well, the need for more affordable housing is more needed than ever. What can we do to make Newport, to provide more affordable housing? Because many of those people are working in the industries and the businesses right here in the city.
Correct. And when I said affordable housing, I'm not meaning specifically low income subsidized.
I know it gets so confusing, and I keep doing that.
Yeah, and I also want to emphasize that our low income and subsidized housing is essentially workforce housing. Our workforce lives in subsidized housing because they qualify. So, digest that. But we also need housing for the folks who are working and living in low income housing when they get to a threshold. And if they're reaching the point where they no longer qualify for low income housing, they lose such an array of support that, a $2 an hour wage raise is not going to substitute for the array of support that they're losing. And so I'm hopeful that, working with our partners who are the experts in this area, that the city can support the effort to provide housing that is affordable without subsidies to the people who are working in Newport. It's a balancing act. It's not done by waving a magic wand, but those are principles that I support, and I'm always looking for solutions. And Newport, I have such faith in Newport. I think of this city as the most remarkable beacon. We have so much talent here. We attract so much talent. And we have so many people who want the best for our residents. I feel confident that if we just engage people with expertise and listen thoughtfully, that we can come up with solutions.
And I should clarify, because it could be a teaching moment, is, I brought up the MLK Center and the higher need. And I just want to let people know that the people that are going there for in need are not just the homeless. A lot of it is our workforce that are out there. My friend Allison from MLK Center, one of the things she told me once on the radio, and I've never forgot it, is sometimes it's your bank teller, or it's your person working in the kitchen doing the dishes, or it's, and they're going to the MLK Center because at the end of the day, when they go to pay their bills, they don't have enough to feed themselves. So I make that because there are a lot of nonprofits out there that are struggling with fundraising because they haven't been able to have their fundraisers. Yep. They aren't able to collect food. So if you have the means, support your neighbors in your community and support one of the nonprofits out there providing services, or go and discover and volunteer for one of those. So I like to try to, if people are listening, they all need help right now. Speaking of needing help right now, let's see if I can make that segue. One of the things that some could argue, I would argue, is that a new school, in addition at a school, might attract more families and might be more attractive for families and all those, as well as businesses. Businesses also look at schools. So, Susan, just wondering, as a city councilor, where do you land on the school bond question? What happens if the bond fails? And what do we do to address school building needs if it fails?
I'd rather answer the first question. If it fails, we're back to the drawing board. likely without even the hope of the state funding that there's a lot that's unknown. I said before, I don't like to whitewash things. I think that we need to be realistic, but the state budget is unknown at this point. But I hope that education nationally will become more of a priority, and that there will be support for what we are trying to do here in the state, and of course here in Newport. But before the COVID pandemic, we were looking at a 52.5% reimbursement rate of whatever we would be spending on the schools. And I do support the bond. I think that a regionalized high school is an idea worth exploring. I think it can offer a wider array of educational opportunities, and I think that students benefit from greater diversity within their schools. However, when we approached our neighbors with that proposal, we were perceived, sadly, because of the condition that Rogers had been allowed to deteriorate to, we were perceived as the poor cousin coming hat in hand and, begging for some help. And that is not us. We perhaps have a greater vision than some of our interlocutors in those discussions. And I really hope that Newport passes this roughly $100 million bond so that we can send a message to our students, because they are our future. Our hope is with them. We support them. Send a message to our teachers who go to work every day in these buildings, and send a message to our neighbors that, you're not interested in regionalization. Well, hell yes, we support our students, and we believe in our community. The numbers, can I give you some numbers?
Yeah, please.
Because our finance director, Laura Citron, who really does fabulous work, little shout out for her, she came to us in February to scare us to death, not with that purpose, but the information she was giving us was scaring us to death. And that was when the potential cost of the school was up around $175 million. And she sobered us all right up. But with the cost dropping, in July, she put out her projected impact, assuming, I have to say, the 52.5% reimbursement. And if we were able to get that, then through a combination of short-term bonds and then morphing into the long-term loans, or bonds, the impact on a $400,000 home would be, oh shoot, these are not the numbers I wanted to refer to. Over the course of, by the third year, the impact would be $156 on a $400,000 home. So that's incremental, first year, second year, and by the third year, it would be $156. So for an $800,000 home, that doubles to $312. I hope that most of us would be able to manage that and believe that it's a good investment in our future. And as far as what we do if the bond doesn't pass, we really are going back to square one.
You've brought it up twice, and just wondering, this could be a short answer or a one-worded answer. Obviously, Rogers isn't in good shape and everybody knows it was ranked worst.
Mm-hmm.
Why did we get there? How did we get there?
I want to say a lack of coordination among different departments that sort of I don't know. I certainly was not on the council until 2016, when I remember doing my first tour of the schools with Superintendent Germain that year. And was not prepared for what I was going to see. There were already buckets in the hallways, and they were talking about the Band-Aids that they were trying to apply at that stage. I don't, I can't point fingers, but clearly there was a lack of coordination. There was a lack of someone saying, right, the buck stops here and we have to do something about this.
Yeah, the conversation has come up very hot over the last couple of years, obviously, because we have a bond issue. And I did not go to Rogers. Everybody should know that if they don't. I don't know. Obviously, this conversation has been had in the past, and I don't believe you always have to point fingers in order to fix something. But this is obviously something that's been going on for 20 years, 10 years, 20 years, 30 years, where somebody had to have said, hey, we need to fix this, replace this. So,
well, I'm going to compare what happened with Rogers to what happened with our zoning. We had passed the comprehensive land use plan, but no one was, I don't know whether it's monitoring or reminding, or there wasn't a coming together of the minds to put the message out that we need to bring our zoning into compliance with the comprehensive land use plan. So that was left in conflict for more than 2 years, until last summer, the Carpianato group, and I appreciate that they did all the work to come up with a zoning model, a scheme that would have facilitated what they wanted to do. But the city should be doing its own zoning, and we have reclaimed the reins on that, which has resulted in the North End Urban Plan. We need to do the same thing with our schools. How did it happen in the past? I have confidence that the same thing will not happen in the future. I think when we get counselors who are forward-looking and thinking about 10, 20, 30 years hence, that we will have a maintenance plan in place. And certainly we have had a maintenance plan in place, and we set aside a percentage of our funding each year dedicated to maintenance now. So we've already taken those steps to address the problem in the future.
Something that I believe is near and dear to your heart, and I hope I'm right when I put that assumption on you. If not, you have the right to correct me. But is climate change, and do you believe it is a major concern for Newport? And if so, what should policymakers do to respond? What else should the city do? What else should city council do? What are you working on? Your thoughts on climate change in the city?
Thank you. So there's the micro and the macro when it comes to climate change. I would like to see, for example, we should do permeable paving everywhere we go. I mean, our cobblestone streets are not necessarily practical, but they are permeable. They are one of our most attractive tourist features, I think. They're horrible to drive on, but they also are an automatic speed limit. You're not going to go 30 miles an hour down a cobblestone street. But I'm being somewhat flippant with that. We could certainly regulate expanses of asphalt in terms of disallowing them. Parking facilities should have permeable paving. Driveways should have permeable paving. We need to stop the stormwater runoff. We need to allow the drainage to occur more naturally. We want to encourage landscaping. Trees help. These are the micro issues. We want to, as I said before, reduce reliance on cars and promote both healthier forms for the individual and for the planet of transportation. And I haven't mentioned yet, but a transportation shuttle that circulates in the downtown area and out to the North End, I believe, is an essential component of our future transportation scheme. For the macro, the city has been tackling with the tide gates at Bridge Street and working on the King Park area. We're trying to tackle taming sea level rise and storm surges. It's massively expensive. It's very difficult for a municipality to fund without assistance from the states, but more importantly from the feds. We need, again, long-term planning with this. I really appreciate the revitalization of our planning department, and I credit Joe Nicholson for uh, some great hires in our planning department. Our planning board is full of vitality as well. And we have planners now who are capable of looking at planning for resiliency, both in terms of climate change and also in terms of disasters that are not coming from nature, again, such as the natural gas outage and the pandemic. And I like to defer to the experts um, and be informed by them as I make my decisions.
Uh, you know, with that in mind, do you think the city is planning far enough out, 10, 15 years? And do you think the city is relying or using the boards and commissions enough? And the smart people that sits on those boards and commissions?
We have some amazing boards and commissions. They are, I hesitate to start naming them because I'm going to leave people out who are also doing great work, but I may not be the liaison with them. I'll just say I'm the liaison with the Tree and Open Space Commission, Newport Energy and Environment Commission, I'm and a number of other commissions. But these folks are doing such in-depth, forward-thinking work, and I really want to see the council respecting their input and incorporating what they have to offer. Bicycle and Pedestrian Advisory Commission also in terms of transportation. And to all of those groups that I've been working with, I apologize for not mentioning you specifically. But are we making enough use? We could make more. We do take their input. I would like to see the council really view them as partners.
Excellent. And
the master transportation plan, which I believe in passionately, I know there have been transportation plans done in Newport before, but the last one I believe was 10 years ago, and transportation options and just in general thinking about transportation needs and walkable cities, they have evolved since then, and I think a new one is just needed in the worst way. And the transportation the transportation planning group, convened by Lily Dick, was represented by the Cliff Walk Commission, Bicycle and Pedestrian Advisory Commission, the Hill Association, the Point Association, the Health Equity Zone, Aquidneck Island Planning Commission, Preservation Society, Discover Newport. I know that I'm going to be leaving people out. It was a very wide array, and these voices came together and cooperated on promoting the input into the request for proposals for the master transportation plan. And that kind of partnership is just, it's so lively, and it's the kind of thing that we should be celebrating.
If we didn't have enough to worry about, it's an ongoing issue and has been an ongoing issue for, some would argue hundreds of years. I certainly would. Systemic racism. Do you believe it is a problem in the city, in the state? Do we need to address it? How do we address it? What can we do to make it a more equitable, fair community for all?
I think we are at a very special moment in time. I did say this last night, but I'll repeat it, that I've been a supporter of civil rights for over 50 years. And in my experience, there has never been a moment quite like this one. It seems there's a confluence of factors. I don't need to analyze those here. I just think that the way forward is, yes, the city needs to step up. We all need to step up. I'm finding, and I'm going to hold up this book, How to Be an Anti-Racist. Wait, wrong side.
Yep, gotcha.
Yeah. And he begins with talking about definitions. And so we have been talking about systemic racism, institutional racism, structural racism, and he wants to break that down so that he's talking about racist policies. Just want to be able to refer here. A racist policy is one that results in racial inequity. And the anti-racist policy is one that can lead us to racial equity. And that's how we need to start thinking about it. I believe that we need to tap into our empathy and develop our curiosity and learn about not only the history of African contributions to Newport's early years, but also how the policies of the 20th century, and redlining is an obvious example, how those policies have contributed to and maintained the inequalities. And if we can, all of us, approach this with curiosity and be prepared for some uncomfortable recent history, I think it's time for us to do this work and to look at policies. I think the city should be looking at our hiring policies. I know that we make attempts to hire those groups that are not strongly represented in our city administration, and I know that that there's more work that could be done on that. But yes, I think there's a role for the city, and I think there's a role for all of us. And I appreciate the leadership of the school committee. I think they have all committed to reading How to Be an Anti-Racist. And I know that the council has supported the curriculum, which would, if this is a statewide initiative that would introduce the African American history into our school curriculum. I'm concerned that it sort of ends up like Black History Month. It's the shortest month in the year, and it's going to be a segment of the curriculum. And we are one Newport. We are one society, and our history is intertwined, and we need to come to know each other and our backstories.
We've hit on a lot. There's certainly a lot to do. There's just a lot to worry about. There's a lot to just overall a lot to do. But, when you were thinking about running for re-election, I'm sure you hopefully, not hopefully, but I'm a list guy. And I write down my top 3 priorities, my top priorities for every single day. So perhaps you don't have a list, but perhaps you have some things that come to mind. You're back on the council come December with the new council. Top 3 priorities if you didn't have anything else to worry about.
So I'm the person who always says, let's take a step back and look at it from a wider perspective. And so you may appreciate this. I have 2 priorities, not 3.
It's okay.
So, but they're big.
A third one will come up.
I'm sure. And the first one is I want to maintain the openness on the council. I want us to encourage the citizen engagement. I think many Newporters have said that I've reached out to them and they used to be engaged, but they haven't been engaged for years, and they're really happy to be getting engaged again. It's an exciting time in the city, and that absolutely warms my heart. I am always open for a conversation, and I encourage people, if you're tempted to give me your thoughts, please do. Um, that's number one priority, the openness, and keeping our meetings and our workshops and public forums a comfortable place for people to engage. The second priority is planning. I would like to see us do a strategic plan, really revisit in depth where we think we should be in 10 years and 20 years' time, and to talk about how we get there. I want to see the master transportation plan because I want to see I want to see us address the parking issues. I want to see us address how we deal with the limited number of north-south thoroughfares. I want to see us address alternative modes of transportation, green and complete streets. I was one of the counselors spearheading that initiative, and that again comes down to planning. That's, think of the dig once concept. Every time that you are opening up a street to do something under the pavement, you should be thinking about all of the possibilities. That how could you transform this street so that perhaps you're burying the optical fiber cable? How do you incorporate some way in which this street allows for natural drainage? How do you incorporate a lane for alternative modes of transportation? I also, as I mentioned before, I want to see us do some resiliency planning. So yes, I want to make sure that the council prioritizes the long-term planning in all of these areas.
You mentioned engagement, and I like to have a little fun with this one where, there are 19 candidates running for city council. Was it because they were sitting at home for a couple months and were like, oh, paid more attention and hey, I should go run? You think there's an issue? Why do you think we're seeing so many people this year?
I know that when I ran in 2016, it was because I felt that, there were people who had been on the council for a long period of time and that they needed some fresh blood. I would expect that there are a number of candidates running who think that the council needs some fresh blood. I don't blame them. I also like to think that citizens have felt that their voices are more valued, and that leads to engagement, to thinking about what's facing Newport. And I have to add, there is so much facing Newport with, of course, the school bond and addressing our educational needs, as well as allowing for and promoting development that allows for sustained economic growth and the mix of uses that we want to see in the North End. It's a very, very, very exciting time for Newport, and I am delighted to see so many people entering the race. I think it's an extremely healthy sign for democracy.
You mentioned that it could be, people have been on the council for a while, things like that. So that goes along with this question that has come up and we've been talking about, which I didn't expect to talk about, but a charter review. What would you like to see it address? Some of the things that have been brought up, and you can share your opinion on them if you want, but some of them have been term limits for city council members. Some of them have been 4-year terms for city council members instead of 2, because it gives you're not working and then campaigning. Some have been a strong mayor system. Some have been 7 different wards. Would you want to see anything in city government change during a charter review, or what would you like to see if you would like to see one?
I would support a charter review. I almost want to say that we've got so much on our plates in the next couple of years that I'm not sure that I would promote it in the next couple of years? And this is a question that's catching me a little bit off guard. So that's my just knee-jerk thought. I feel excited, but also like our plate is full by what we have on our plates coming in the next couple of years. But in terms of the specific questions that you mentioned, I really think it bears thinking about. Having served on the council, it's such an education. I really encourage more people to do it because it gets you thinking about your city government in a different way. I would be in favor of staggered 4-year. This is if I were sitting on the Charter Review Commission. Staggered 4-year appointments. I think you would have to do 3 and 4, but that way you are assured of the institutional memory and the continuity, and that is critically important. I also would be in favor of an institutionalized, formalized sort of orientation training for new counselors that really goes through the mechanics of how counselors communicate with each other, what the restrictions are that are imposed by the Open Meetings Act, and how you generate support for a resolution, how you analyze an ordinance change, how does zoning work, how does planning work. There's a lot of levers in this government, and I regret that I didn't have more formalized training when I joined the council. I think that's critically important. The mayoral selection process I find it unfortunate in that because it is a majority of those who have been elected to the council who are voting for one of the at-large councilors to become mayor, if you have 2 strong candidates for mayor, the lobbying begins before the party is over on election night. And people who are new to the council may not be ready for the intensity of the lobbying. And there hasn't been a set rule in Newport's history as to, is there a definition that the highest vote getter should be the mayor? That has been a convenient benchmark, but clearly it has not been followed. I haven't done an exact survey, but I think perhaps even 50% of the time. It's tough because you begin your term with perhaps some hard feelings. And so it requires the maturity and the council being able to come together under a strong leader to overcome the differences that may have surfaced during that lobbying process.
How I often explain it is it's a bit like Survivor, if you've ever watched it, where you're trying to get people to not vote you off the island or to vote you on the island to keep you around. And I enjoy asking that question. There is no wrong answer to any of these questions, but I enjoy almost everybody has, if you had a wish list on how to make city government better, and people have shared all different ideas. And I think that it's just fun to hear about it. And I think there should be a course for anybody in the community to go through to learn more about how government works in the city.
Yeah.
As been brought up by other candidates and has been brought up by me is, a lot of the times when people see a new hotel going up, they think it's this person's fault when they don't necessarily think of zoning or planning. And they automatically think of city council or they automatically, on the statewide level too. Oh, it's the governor's fault. Well, it comes all the way down here, and this is where that is. I think sometimes there needs to be an adult class on government and how it works. So,
Ryan, thank you. You are.
Well, I'll be honest. Sometimes I'm writing about a new business or a new hotel, and you read the comments as some people do, and sometimes it shows that that class would be valuable in our society is the best possible way I could put that without putting my foot in my mouth.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
This is a tough question, but everybody has gotten it right, and everybody has had a different answer. What do you love about Newport? Why do you call it home? I've really enjoyed, and I've said this many times, is I've really enjoyed catching up with the candidates this way because not only am I meeting new people or hearing new things about people that I already know, but everybody has a different answer for this one too.
Oh, Ryan, I never, ever, ever thought I would tear up in an interview like this. And so excuse me. So it's been intriguing. I first came to Newport in December of 1986. And I will be honest, and Bart Dunbar has heard this, when I went to Bowen's Wharf, I felt like, wow, what an amazing spot. And that this certainly is how you celebrate Christmas. And I stayed with an older friend of mine who was in an NRF house at 33 Farewell Street. I was absolutely charmed. And she already had lots of great things to say about Newport, but I visited the White Horse Tavern. You've heard that my parents are English, so my dad had gone to school in a school that was established in the 1100s, in the 12th century. So I've always appreciated old houses, old structures, and history. And Newport just felt like a place that sort of wrapped me in a blanket at that point. And it would be another 20 years before we were able to look for a house here. My husband is a great sailor, and so I love the sailing community. I love just the fact that you can just being able to get out on the water is fantastic. I love the Point neighborhood where we live, and I do live right across from St. John's Church, which is an inspiration to me. I love the diversity in Newport. That was the one aspect where I thought I was going to be shaving off, an arm or something like that to be moving to Newport. My impression of Newport was that it was very white, very, pretty well off, and lots of history, gardens, sailing. And when I came and I discovered the incredible vibrancy in, throughout Newport, the diversity of our community, the vitality of our community organizations. And I just want to mention Sankofa. I want to mention the movement to establish the Middle Passage Port Marker Project and the Rhode Island Slave Medallions. I felt once again like I was at home. I had lived previously in Seattle, in Portland when I went to law school, and in New York City, and I had been an immigration lawyer, so I've worked all my life among a pretty diverse community and in large urban areas. But Newport has it all for me, and I have to mention my love of the Oregon coast and beaches and natural beauty. And I couldn't wrap this up without saying that Newport is just stellar in that regard.
Well, you have another chance to wrap things up. Is there any topics, issues, things that you wrote down, things that you haven't had a chance to talk about that you would like to share now? I know we hit on a lot of stuff, so it's okay if your answer is we hit it all.
I think we hit it all.
Okay.
There's more that I love about Newport, but
You think, all right, so we hit all of the topics. I mean, we hit a wide variety of topics. But of course, if anybody wants to reach out to you, learn more about you, ask you a question, find out more clarification on anything, best way to reach you, Susan?
I'm going to say the phone. I like to talk. 401-207-1028. My email address is staylor@cityofnewport.com. And I have a website which I am continually adding to, and that is susandtaylor.com.
Excellent. And of course, reason to go to vote either before or on September 8th. I got to keep reminding that the majority or a good amount of people are voting by mail or ahead of time in person. But September 8th, everybody in Newport has a reason to vote in the primary. There are 12 people running for at-large. You can vote for up to 4 on September 8th, and then you can vote for up to 4 on November 3rd as well. So all of these candidates, as well as democracy, need you to go vote on September 8th and November 3rd or ahead of time. Vote.sos.ri.gov to find the sample ballot, to check your voter registration, to see what ward you live in. All of that stuff is there. Anything else I missed, Susan?
Yes. I am number 12 on that ballot. So my motto is eat dessert first. Plan ahead by working backward. Go to number 12 and then see how much room you have.
Oh, I actually did miss a question. Holy cow, because we were I've been asking this one. If you were on this side of the table, what question would you like to see each candidate answer and why? And I've also been adding an addition to this is, as a voter, or what question should voters be asking of candidates? What's a good question you would recommend that, if a candidate did happen to come to your door, what would you be asking the candidates, or what would you like to see candidates answer?
If I were going to, let's see, if a candidate came to my door, I would be asking, how much do you think about urban design? What's your view on how to make our neighborhoods serve our residents better? How would you address traffic concerns, urban planning sorts of questions? And I would be asking, in terms of personal style and values, I would be asking, how open-minded are you? How much curiosity do you bring to your decision-making process? And how mindful are you of equity and inclusion of all the voices across Newport? We have brilliant urban designers in this city, brilliant architects. We have a vibrant community organizations. I have to give more of a shout out to the HES, which has done so much to bring forward the voice of the North End community and really promote constructive engagement. So I would want to be sure that there was a counselor who was bringing that awareness and that openness to the table.
Excellent. I'm glad I looked over my questions again, so people can keep that in mind as they talk to candidates. And again, I've been trying to say this as often as possible. You probably won't see candidates coming to your door because of COVID. So you might have to put a little bit more effort into this election season. You may have to go back and watch these videos. You may have to reach out to the candidates. So make this the year that you get more engaged, and make this the year that when you go and vote, that you make informed votes and you know why you're choosing the candidates, and it's not just because the candidate's name rhymes with yours. So please be informed. All right, Susan, I think that's it now, right?
That's it. I should add that if you want to find me, there's a chance you'll see me at the tables passing out masks.
All right, excellent. Well, Susan, thank you so much. I hope you enjoy your Friday as well as your weekend.
Thank you, Ryan.
All right, that is Susan Taylor, Vice Chair of Newport City Council. She is a candidate for Newport City Council at Large. And if you need more information about Susan, you can get her contact info from the video. We encourage you to head to whatsupnewp.com as well and get all the information about all the candidates. We have a nice election voter guide there. On behalf of all of us here at What's Up Newp, I want to thank you for watching. Again, remember, primary September 8th, as well as the general election on November 3rd. Everybody has a reason and a right to go and vote, and a responsibility to go and vote. Thanks for watching.